So we're back here again, the same night, 2 episodes, because we love talking to the people. I'm going to let you all know that I have switched up to Atwater's Vanilla Java Porter mixed with Founders Rubaeus, both Michigan beers again, because I'm supporting the state.
Anheuser-Busch Bud Light. It's going to be my go-to all night. When we get this sponsor, you guys are going to thank me because David and I are going to be drinking Anheuser-Busch Bud Light all day.
I can guarantee that's probably not going to happen.
When I get a Michigan brewery to sponsor us, then we're going to be living Cloud 9, drinking some beers.
I will tell you, if Anheuser-Busch is sponsoring us and they're giving us free beer, then I will definitely drink something that they make. I'm not sure what, but something.
Ooh, Bud Light Platinum. Bud Light Platinum.
And Mike is still drinking just nothing because he ran out.
Still out. So, all right, guys. Hey, episode number 2 for 1. We love these nights. We let these things go long because we get passionate about it, and we really just enjoy talking. Here's the bad, right? Here's the things we find that people who are not financially successful, financially stable, have to worry about retirement, things like that. These are what we find the habits of people who, let's call it, don't have money, right? These are the things that they do. So, David, why don't you start us out? And
So number one thing, and I'm going to word this in a specific way, it's spending more than you bring in. Okay, I'm naming it that way because it's not more than you make necessarily, because, I've shown my budget before, and even though my wife and I make a certain amount of money, I know I'm bringing in an extra $1,400, $1,500 every month by all the extra stuff that I do, whether that's parsing my tax return out for 12 months or the coaching check I get or my interest or, doing surveys, whatever it is. I'm making an extra $1,400, $1,500 a month. So if you're spending more than whatever you're bringing in, this is a bad habit. We need to stop that stuff. You need to, we said in the last episode, you need to write down what your budget is and figure out how to live by that or less than that.
Yeah. And, I think that's, we started the last episode with the most important, and we are going to start this episode out with the most important, right? You're spending more money than you bring in. And, right, we talked a little bit about going out to eat. We talked about, there's so many things that you could be doing that are making you spend more money than you're bringing in. So, you know what, if you want to keep doing your lifestyle, we've talked about it. We don't want people to change if you don't want to. We just want you to be more financially successful. So if you're going to continue exactly what you're doing, find another job. Find a better paying job, get a second job, support your habits, right? Do what you have to do. I don't want you to hate who you are. I would hate to see that. But I want you to afford what you do. I want you to afford your lifestyle. So, we find that people are paying too much for a car, right? Because it could be your dream car, and but everything ages, right? I mean, yeah, you got the 1960s, 70s ish that cars held value, but we've never, early 50s stuff like that, but we've never seen any vehicle hold value, right? I mean, they're a dime a dozen. They're going to always depreciate in value. We're finding that people are overspending on those car payments and not budgeting correctly for them. Sometimes it's just because you feel like you don't have any other option, right? Because you need reliable transportation to get to your job, and you just instantly go buy a car. Sometimes it's because you want to buy that BMW to say that you're making it because you think that your income is there, and it's really it's not, because once that car breaks, you need rotors, you need $100 oil change on that thing. Like, you don't have that money, you didn't budget it, you didn't do the right thing. So we're not picking on you, we're just telling you these are the things we find are failures and what tend to drown people and hold them down and make them not build that wealth, and we want to build wealth. So
Well, I think that was one of the eye-opening things for Mike when him and I sat down and looked at his budget is, okay, this is what I'm making, this is what I have to spend. Am I wrong, Mike?
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So
I had to look at, I had to take into account, I knew what my income was to work, but I had to find out what I was going to be paying out in child support to know what was going to be coming in every 2 weeks or every month or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I could be like, okay, I can afford this much for rent or a mortgage. I can afford this much for, an internet bill. I can afford this much for groceries.
well, and obviously going through a divorce, you're starting over from scratch because you have all these bills that you may not have known about. And Mike did it in a staged approach, which was the smartest thing to do. So he moved back in with his parents for a little bit, built some money up, moved out into an apartment. It was an apartment first, right?
I lived in an apartment first, yeah.
And then, saved up enough money for a down payment for a house, and then he moved to a house.
Yep.
And, the important thing for him was, I want to keep my kids in the school they're in.
Yep.
So he had a specific area he had to look in. So he had to find something in that area in his price range that he could afford and wouldn't be an issue. So when he looked at everything, him and I sat down and looked at the money, and I said, hey, look at these things. And really, the only help I gave him was one day on a Sunday. And I remembered it was a WrestleMania Sunday.
Yep.
Like, I don't know, probably 2015-ish, 2016-ish, 2016.
Like that, yeah.
It was probably 2016. And we sat down, I looked at it, I said, this is what I would do. And I don't think Mike and I talked about his money again in anything other than passing conversation.
Yep.
It was all him sitting there going, okay, David said these things. This is what I'm going to do, which, some of what he said, some of what I think. And, by the time I turned around, he bought a house, he bought a new car, he was saving money, he was, looking at what can I do to pay for my kids' education.
Yep.
And those are things that make you sit there and go, hey, I'm finally, I'm getting this. I know what to do.
Dad.
Right or wrong.
Correct. Yeah.
So, when we look at it, that spending less or spending more than what you bring in is going to absolutely destroy your potential to make wealth. And we want you to be wealthy.
And to say living comfortable is wealthy, right? And you pick your own comfort, right? I mean, as David said, he doesn't vacation as often as I do. And so honestly, like, you have to figure out what you want out of life and then go capture that, right? And it can always change through time. Mike, just because you've kind of been there a little bit, I only have some older things of like, hey, I didn't save as much as I should have. What is one of the biggest things, I guess, that David or anything has taught you that you were doing wrong that you have changed now? Like, what was your worst habit back then? Do you have any idea?
I mean, my worst habit, and I think it goes down to what you said at the beginning of the previous episode, is I didn't have things written down. I wasn't budgeting. I wasn't aware. I wasn't giving myself a cushion of, like, Dave said, if you're spending, $375, say you spent $4, and I'm not, and I lived paycheck to paycheck. I didn't say, oh, I always want to have at least $500 to $1,000 in my checking account at any one time. And, consider that my 0 point, to the point where if I'm below that, that's when I need to start freaking out. I wasn't doing that stuff.
No, and that's great. Like, and I think, again, we talked about budgeting, but like that is key. Like, yeah. I find that, you just said it, your biggest failure was not budgeting, and you found it to be the most successful thing to help you get to the next step.
Yeah.
We talked about 500, 1,000. I keep 1,000 now. I think having a plus amount of money be your new zero is a thing. I remember when I first started out, it was like $100, right? I just always told myself, I for some reason, I grew up so poor that like I remember crying one day. This big guy cried. I was 16 years old. I had a flat tire. I had no money to change that flat tire. I went and worked so hard to get it. And I put the new tire on and I backed out of my driveway and I crap you not, the other tire blew, right? The opposite tire. And like it devastated me because like I just worked so hard to get like a new tire on and so now it's like so I told myself I was like I need $100 just to guarantee I have a tire, right? And so I made that $100 my new zero for the oh crap something just happened. Like, you know, if I have to have somebody come pick me up in my beater car. I mean, this was a 1997 Ford Escort, right? I mean, I had no heat. My wife and I still love it. You know, I was scraping ice from the inside with credit cards, right? It's back. I haven't seen one in a while, but back then they were sending me credit cards in the mail to sign up, and I just kept them as ice scrapers just to get the inside of my car. And you know, so it was having an emergency fund or some type of money and understanding that emergency fund is literally your $0 fund, right? Like once you hit that, oh crap, get that back up. So I really like the fact that budgeting is the biggest thing that's helped you and actually writing it down. So you know, I say other bad habits, David.
Well, I want to take a tangent here because we're really good on taking tangents. So I got two real quick tangents. One is Mike's first car that he bought was a Ford Escort.
It was.
It was green. We drove that fucker to Iowa and back. I don't know why we went to Iowa because it's the second dumbest state in the union next to Kentucky.
Wasn't that when we drove to Toronto and back too?
We did drive that to Toronto and back. You're right.
You don't talk about Kentucky like that, all right? They have bourbons. They have the horses. I love Kentucky.
They have two stupid senators. Anyways.
Doesn't matter.
Mind you, remember, we were living in Illinois when we drove to
We were
Iowa.
working a really stupid job.
Make the trip from Michigan and back.
Yes, it was in Illinois and it was a dumb job and oh boy. Anyways.
Yeah.
No, and so, you know, but that goes to the next thing, right? Like I know at that time
I wasn't done yet on my tangent. Stop for a minute.
You are done.
I'm not done. So I did a survey a few years ago. They paid me like $150 to sit in a room with people. And I'm not really a people person. I'm kind of a dick. So he's asking questions and he asks these women, he goes, is it important for you for your kids to have a better life than you? And like 3 women in a row go, no, I don't really care. As long as they're happy, I don't give a shit. And he looks at me and he goes, is it important for your kid to have a better life than you? I'm like, fuck yeah, it's important. I worked my ass off so my kid has a better life than what I have. And he asks a couple more people and, you know, guys, and they answer the same way I do. And he looks at the guys and he goes, I think I figured it out. It's a guy thing. So I'm on with 2 guys here. Nick, is it more important for your daughter to have a better life than you? Is that important?
I think your answer was, and I quote, F yes, it's more important. It's 1,000 times more important. Yeah, like I work so my daughter can have a better lifestyle than what I had. I mean, I'm not going to hand her things for free, but she's definitely going to have a better lifestyle. I mean, you know, I want to build, let's call it a small empire for her to build this community, right? And then I want her kids to build you know, just massive. And you know, I always want the next generation to do better.
Mike?
I'm going to say it this way, and that's almost going to be like in the middle of the road, like I often end up being, in that yes, I want them to not necessarily have to worry about, you know, how am I going to pay for college? How am I going to do this, that, and the other thing? But I also am the one who, like, if they want to go to, you know, a 1-year tech school and get a job as a welder and that's what makes them happy, I'm all about it.
Well, and that, I think again that reiterates back to what I've been saying is like it's all about what you want as a person. So
Yeah.
me saying that I want better for my daughter isn't necessarily financial, right? Like
Yeah.
my wife is a hippie, right? Like I joke with her all the time. I mean, she really, she's 100 times, and me, I care about the world and I want to impact lives. So my hope is, and I can't choose it for her, but my hope is that my kid looks at me and says, "Hey, Dad, I want to travel the world and I want to impact lives in every other country, and I want to, just honestly make an impact on the world." I want her to be able to do that. I never had that opportunity, right? If I have to pay money for her to do that, as long as she's doing the things she said, she's, working her butt off to do it. As long as she's doing, man, she's happy. Like I worked the first however long of my life not happy. I work. Let's be honest, right? Like if this gets me fired, it'll suck. But I don't want to work at my job. I show up, I do the job. If my daughter never has to work a day in her life, but she's the happiest person in the world doing it, man, that's a better life than what I had, right? Because I had to do something that I hated. We all have to do things we hate, but it's again making that hate from down here to making that hate to up here, right? Like I think we all look at people and we're like, oh man, we're so jealous that they can pretty much do whatever they want and buy whatever they want whenever they want, like sports stars or actors, and their kids, and like they get to. So man, if my kid can have any experience of that, I'm a happy father, right? Like she has officially lived her life the way she wanted to, and if I can help and impact that any way, I am happy.
Well, I think that's where we're all at. It doesn't necessarily have to be just monetarily.
Yeah.
It's we want to set up our kids for success. We want them to do whatever they have a passion for. Like, Nick and I, we've known each other for a while. Mike and I have known each other for, quarter of a century or more. My biggest passions are money and coaching. If I could make a living coaching without the hassle, I would probably do that. Hey, Nick's all bright now. He's outside.
I figured I wanted to get some more light on this subject because I think we're all going to put some passion into this bad boy. So
I think we are too, because
I'm gonna go sit by the pool.
You look at this and Nick coached with me for a year and he knows where my passion lies. It's not necessarily with coaching because excuse me. Yeah, I love coaching and I love teaching girls how to play softball, and that's great. But it's not necessarily about being better at throwing a ball or hitting a ball. It's about being a better person. Yeah. So I look at some of these girls that I coached, and I coached in an inner city school for a long time, and now I coach, I'm an assistant at a country school that they all have cows and stuff. And at the end of the day, I just want these kids to be better people. And the better I can make them, the happier I am about it. And, Nick got to come on that journey for a year with me. Mike has watched me, the last few years as a coach, just being happy about them getting out and competing. And I know with Nick, it's, he has a lot of, he has a lot of, he doesn't have a lot of mentors. He has one major mentor, which, helps him navigate his way through things. But honestly, even for being as young as he is, he's mentoring a lot of people. And even with Mike, he has his children that he's trying to impress that this is what you need to do and get better. And, he has a family that looks at him and he can say, yeah, I screwed up here and there, but now I have everything together and this is what I'm doing to build my money and have a better life. And that's literally what we want to do. It's not necessarily about being rich. We would all love to be rich, but we want to pass that on to other people and say, this is what you can do to be better. I think Nick might be lost. Mike, am I wrong?
No, you're right. Yeah, no, that's why, I really like being, active in scouts with my kids and stuff like that, is it's teaching them some character, teaching them some skills that they might not get other places. And, maybe they'll find something in, learning some of these skills that they'll really become passionate about, and, either becomes, a part-time job like Dave with the coaching, or even a full-time job like, my son has really gotten into cooking and thinks he wants to be a chef.
Well, you look at it, when you see the three of us, we all have very different educational backgrounds. Mike went to Albion College. He graduated with honors, a psychology degree. He's not really in the psychology field.
I'm not in psychology at all.
I went to many, many schools. I'm still going to college, which I started in psychology. I did a little computer science. Now I'm fully on finance. I'm 5 classes away from my bachelor's degree, which hopefully I'll finish in the next couple of years here once, tuition reimbursement kicks back in for my job. And Nick's done a few classes here and there, but for the most part, he's fully on I worked, but I'm really trying to build, my future through investments in real estate.
Yeah, I say, honestly, we go out to, I went to college because back then, which isn't long, but back then, in order for you to have your parents cover insurance, you had to be going to school full time or have a full time job. And so, honestly, I was scared. So it was, all right, I guess I have to finance my future just to make sure, I figured it was cheaper to have insurance, by financing college than it was, to actually go do it. And then I got offered a bowling scholarship. And so I bowled for college. I didn't go for school necessarily. I went for the insurance and then for the fun of, wanting to live that lifestyle that everybody talks about. And I regret it. I'll be honest, right? I wish I knew back then what I know now, because I would have started a heck of a lot sooner. And I wasted, let's call it, a couple years of my life. I don't have a degree. I have some college, and I'm in a job right now where that's all I care about is what your degree is in. And I'll be the first to tell them, right? Like, when you show me a paycheck that's bigger than mine, I will officially go to school, and only if you promise me that job. But I know I can make more money outside of this place, So, it's a frustration for me, because I find that's another bad habit, right? Is people listen to the masses and they say, hey, school is school is if you want to get to this spot, and it's not. But I mean, I like the fact that we just talked about Mike has a degree in something he's not even using. David, he was going to school, but his degree changed, but because of his job and where he wants to be with his job. I went to school for nothing. I have an interest in this, and I guess I'll just declare this just so I can bowl. That's kind of what it was. So, I think people waste too much money on education, just to say they have it. Honestly, if you know you're going to get lined up with a job, and you have an in and all that, yeah, go to school, do it, make sure it's for something, right? The whole joke is people go to school for underwater basket weaving or, yodeling 101 or something. And it's just like, man, that's such a waste to me. So, if you're going to do something, do it full heartedly. So that's a bad habit that I see, is people following the masses. It's funny because growing up, you were always told, if your friends jumped off of a bridge, would you jump off of a bridge? And your parents always wanted you to answer no. Oh, if your friends go to school, are you going to go to school? Well, apparently that answer is supposed to be yes at that point, but it's not true to me. I mean, me personally, right? I'm a business mindset. Again, if my kid wanted to go to a technical school or something like that, man, I'm all for it, right? Because that's what they're passionate about. And so my wife, she is an occupational therapist. She had to go to school. The law requires it. She has to have it. I supported it, but she knew what she wanted to do. And so I think if you know what you want to do and you have that, go do it. Otherwise, man, take a step back and figure out that you can work, in a different job and work your way up there. So school's not for everybody, I'll tell you that.
Well, when we look at stuff, one of the other bad habits I really want to hit on, and I think Nick and I know this really well because of the areas we live in. He lives in Jenison, which is, upper middle class, maybe lower high class. I live in Byron Center, which is definitely lower high class, maybe middle high class.
Yeah.
Don't spend your money on credit. So a lot of the people around me, the only way they afford their lifestyle is by maxing out their credit, whether it's 2 or 3 house loans or maxing out every credit card they have. My wife and I have walked around, and mind you, this is going to sound really pompous, but I don't care. My wife and I have walked around the last 10, 12 years saying, I bet we have more money than everybody on the block because they're mortgaging themselves through the nose.
Yep.
And we're just sitting here going, yeah, I'm all right with the fact that, I have one mortgage and I'm not buying a boat or a 4-wheeler or, taking 3 vacations a year or anything else. I'm just trying to make ends meet and save some money for the future.
And, I say, I'm not going to put the person's name out there, but I will tell you, I have a friend that lives in Byron Center, and he came to me one day and he said, look, we're, between my wife and I, we have gotten, let's call it $20,000 worth of credit card debt, right? And it was from putting their son through football camp. It was putting their son through baseball camp. It was, financing a vacation that they go on every year. It was, and so it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was a constant. Hey, he wants it, he needs it, blah, blah, we're going to do it. And so we talked, and, I gave him the idea of a home equity line of credit, because I was like, hey, the interest rate's going to be less than the credit card. But, they ended up doing a cash out refi because they had enough equity in their house at the time. And I begged him so much. I was like, look, you've had your prayers answered, right? Everything has literally just fallen into your lap. Don't blow it. Don't blow this opportunity. And we had this, because I'll be honest, I took a HELOC out on my place here because I don't owe much and I wanted to buy another house. So I was like, hey, I'll do a race with you because I'm money motivated. I was like, let's see who can pay their HELOC off faster, right? So then we go a couple of weeks and he's like, yeah, I'm doing good, I'm doing this, and I'm like, all right, I'm taking that money that I'm saving every month and putting towards it. And then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, we kind of fell off. We opened a credit card, we did this, and I was like, oh man, like, so I fear for what's going to come, especially with having the higher mortgage payment, having, these new credit cards. And it's just, so yes, David, like where you live, people are more willing to finance everything, and it's in every class, right? You and I coached inner city. I coached varsity at a different school by myself, and that was a diverse school. Like it was I had a parent I had a kid whose parents were very, very well off, and I had kids who needed rides everywhere and they didn't go home to their parents, right? Like, so everybody finances it, and that's what we find is like when you try to keep up with the Joneses, right? Buy a riding lawnmower that you thought you wanted, but you could push mow for free. Like honestly, keeping up, especially in yours and my area for sure. I don't know about Mike's area, but David, like, tell me everybody on your block, doesn't have a riding, a riding lawnmower except you.
Damn near everyone.
They don't have very big lawns, which doesn't make it seem like a riding lawnmower would be necessary.
Right. Well, and it's funny because they're always brand new too. It's like I just got the brand new Husqvarna, the Cub Cadet, and trust me, I'm a tractor man. Like you give me a John Deere, I'm the happiest guy in the world. I bought my neighbor moved out, and I bought his 0-turn Husqvarna with 23 hours on it for $600. You know, I mean, I got a steal of a deal. But you know, that's the only reason I have that. But so that's a bad habit is trying to impress everybody else that's around you, trying to buy a status. You know, I mean, it goes back to buying a expensive car. Don't do it, right? It's not worth it. You're not proving any, you know, you're not proving anything to anybody, you know.
Well, you know, and you know, talking about status symbols, so you know, we're doing this episode, it's June 2nd, 2020, and the world is ending because we're in the middle of coronavirus and Black Lives Matter and all this shit that's going on. And I think back to the last year that I coached travel ball, which was summer 2013. And, you know, I coached for an organization where they charged probably $1,000 a kid. And I had practice that summer at the high school I coached at, which was very inner city. And I told them, I said, listen, you're going to come to practice. You're going to practice with some of my school kids. And I remember I had these twins that were, you know, they were probably 5'10", both blonde, 14 years old, nice girls. And they sat there arguing in front of these very inner city kids that don't have anything. They're arguing that, hey, my birthday's next week and I better get a new $400 bat. And for them, that was a guarantee. And I remember one of the kids I coached looked at me and goes, they're kidding, right? And I went, nope, that's the life they live. And that's not the life you will ever live. You're going to get a $400 bat because I'm going to buy one for the school and you're going to get to use that one.
Yep.
But your parents are never going to be able to buy that. And that's fine. But what you have to do is realize, you know, where you're at in life. If you're at the spot in life where, you know, you can pay for your kids to play a sport for $1,000 a year and buy them a new $400 bat every year, that's great. But you have to be logical on those expenditures. I heard a college coach say once, he said, you know, you're going to pay all this money for these travel teams. You're going to pay all this money for this training. And at the end of the day, you're going to be left with memories, and you better make the most of those memories because most of them are not going to come with a full ride to a Division I school.
That's exactly it. You know, I mean, and we talk about it all the time, right? Is, you know, we've had this conversations with parents like, hey, I want to do what I can. And honestly, right, we were like, hey, if you want to bring a treat, we get it. Like, you know, because David and I remember the year that we coached together. I had a daughter, that's why I stopped, but you know, we would still be doing it. You know, we would fundraise, we would do everything we could to make sure these kids had, you know, let's call it the one $400 bat that they all shared. I mean, you know, we understand, especially, you know, from where I come from. I didn't have, you know, I had a bat that was sitting in the basement for 25 years that might have been my grandpa's, and I got made fun of, but man, hit a home run one time with that bad boy and all of a sudden you're king, you know. But yeah, we had girls that probably could have done it, but you know, money was the motivator, and you know, they had to support their family. So you know, honestly, the chances that your kid is going to be a pro athlete in the sport that you're funding, man, it's very small. You know, honestly, if I'm not saying don't support your children, right? I'm saying don't stress yourself financially to have your kid have that lifestyle that they statistically won't end up with. I mean, you know, if they're not in middle school and getting scouted by people, you know, I would take a look at your finances and figure out where you want to be. So.
Well, the next thing we really want to hit is, and we talked about it very briefly on the last episode, was payday loans. Don't ever take out a payday loan.
Never.
These are predatory. Their only goal is to put you in further debt. How they make money is they get you to come in and say, you know what, I'm 10 days from my paycheck and I really need some money to tie me over. Can you give me some money? And they go, yeah, I can give you $500. That's not a problem. Here you go, $500. Just so you know, in 10 days, you owe me $580. And 10 days come and you go, well, here's your $580 because you don't have a choice. You've already written them a check. They're taking that $580. And you're going, well, I don't have any money left, so I really need $500 again. And they go, well, that's fine. You're getting paid in 2 weeks, so here's your $500. In 2 weeks, you're going to give me $580. And all it ends up being is this really bad track record of, here's $580 that I'm spending every 2 weeks just to get my $500 in my actual pay.
Yep. Well, and then they build the interest on the $80, and they build the interest on the $80 and $160, and then they build the interest on the $240, and like, yeah, okay, it looks like 10%, 12%, 25% interest on this money, but I mean, this is daily, compounded constantly, and it turns into 300 to 400% interest over a year, and there's really no way out of it, right? I mean, you have to hope and pray, and we David and I, it's our number one biggest thing that we hate, right, is payday loans. Honestly, if you don't talk to your parents, if you don't talk to your sister, if you don't talk to anybody, right, like, you hate somebody, call them first before you go to a payday lender, right? Like, yeah, honestly, that's how bad we think of these things, is like, I would rather talk to my worst enemy versus a payday lender. That's how bad these people are.
Well, and people will be like, I would rather give blood than take money from these. You know what? They'll pay you for plasma. Go give your plasma. You can probably make $80, $100 a week.
$70, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's going to take you a couple hours every week. I'd rather you give plasma than take money from these people because they're just horrible predators. They basically look at you like you're a gazelle, and they're a lion, and they're going to suck everything you have. And there's no reason to pay that ever.
Yeah. So that's our second biggest bad habit is payday loans. Again, we talked about touching, or keeping up with the Joneses, financing things that you shouldn't be able to, that you shouldn't. We want to touch base on another bad habit is not educating yourself, right? And we talked about, paying for college, but we're talking about watching things like this. I mean, if you don't look for help in how to better your life, we look at that as a bad habit, right? I mean, I watch other people's YouTubes. I listen to podcasts all the time because there's always somebody that has more knowledge than what I have, and so we find that, if you're not reading books, I don't read. I've read two books my whole life, and I hated the last one I read because I already had all the knowledge that it gave me. So, but we find that if you're not trying to help yourself, you're failing yourself, right? Like, if you're not trying to better your life through learning something that you don't already know, I mean, even if your job, right? Like, if you're not learning what it takes to become the next step, right? You're not doing anything. I mean, so it's everything that you do. If you're not willing to learn how to make money, if you're not willing to learn how to not spend money, if you're not willing to learn how to budget money, there's so much stuff that it comes to, then that's what we find as a bad habit is the continuing the education financially. I want to reiterate another bad habit, right? Financing cars at a high percent. Right now they're offering 0% loans on vehicles, and that's fine. But we find that buying a car that's 3 years old or older, right? The depreciation is already set in, so you don't need a brand new vehicle. you could have a great debate with me right now. Honestly, I don't know where I stand on the 0% interest. I love 0% interest, but I know that 0% interest on 40,000 versus 3% interest on $20,000 vehicle is way better. You know, I mean, I probably still choose the used vehicle at 20,000 with, 30,000 miles on it. And I want to talk about buying too big of a vehicle. So I own a truck. It gets used quite a bit. But I have personal friends that own a truck that have never once hauled anything in it. They just wanted a big vehicle. I have friends that have no kids, don't haul anything, and they have a Ford Expedition, right? Like full-size SUV, because it's a status thing. I have a friend that owns a Bentley, and he can afford it all day, every day, right? But again, he can afford that. He doesn't have to worry about having four seats. So don't buy more than you need or more than you can afford. I mean, really, the difference between brand new, I love Dodge Ram, or so just Ram now, compared to my Dodge Ram, because I have an 04. I saved 90% of, I mean, I saved 90% on my vehicle to do it. So we find that poor people or not financially stable people are financing vehicles constantly. And if you're leasing, right, you're rolling that lease over to the next one. You're never buying anything. It's never going to be worth anything. You're just wasting your money just to have a vehicle. So we find that leasing vehicles is another very negative. You get nothing out of it for nothing in return.
One of the big things I want to hit on vehicles is, when I was young and my mom bought vehicles, and even, in my early days, you trade in your vehicle on a new vehicle, and you get X number of dollars back, which is never as good as if you just take the time and sell the damn thing on your own. So my thought is always, I'm going to take this vehicle, I'm going to sell it on my own, I'm going to make more money. I'm all about more money. So I bought my daughter a car. She was 15 years old. I spent, I don't know, about $6,900 on it. I turned around when she was, God, she probably bought that in 15, 16, something. Probably bought it in 15, end of 15. She wanted a new car. We took $2,000 and put it down. We just took $2,000 and put it down. I didn't trade her car in. I waited until I could get the deal I wanted, which was $2,500 for it, and I gave her $2,500 back. So basically, she made $500 over what she put down on the car.
Yeah.
So
no, and I think that's it. Is we did talk about time as money, but I know when I looked at a vehicle, I looked at trading in. We talked about the Ford Escort, I think last episode, or I looked at trading that in for a vehicle, and they were going to give me $500, and I was like, man, this thing runs and drives, it's fine, and I ended up selling it for, I don't know, I think $800, 2 mini bikes and a mini quad. I sold one of the mini bikes and one of the quads for $200 a piece, and I had a mini bike that I rode around in style. So and made money on it. So you can always make more money than what the dealership's going to give you, right? They're looking to make a profit. Understand that. So even on lease trade-ins, I know people do that. There's always somebody that's looking to buy at a discounted value, right? So let's say you bought $50,000. Lease trade-in is going to be, let's call it 30 for round numbers. You can either buy it out for 30,000 or lease the next one. You know what? Somebody's going to give you 35,000 for that. You're going to make $5,000 on top of that, and somebody's going to have a used truck at the value that they need to get it at. Don't quote me on those numbers, but you're always the point is you're always going to make more money taking the time to sell it yourself.
yeah, it just takes time to do that. And that's what a lot of people don't want to deal with, is they don't want to deal with the time or the hassle. So they'll just take less money for it. And I'm all about, let's deal with the time and the hassle. I know when Mike gets ready to get a new car, he's going to go, hey, I don't want time and hassle. I'm just going to let them give me a trade-in. And I'm going to go, dude, I'll sell that for you. I'll make you, $1,000 more than they'll make. And let's just run with that.
I'm already figuring when I buy a new car, it's going to be giving the current car to my kids to drive around.
There you go. Which is the smart thing to do, because they'll probably be at that age.
They will.
So,
go ahead, David.
So kind of the next thing we wanted to hit on was something that I'm really bad at that Nick is way better than me at, and it's hoarding your money and not spending it on some fun. So we only get a limited time in this world, and sometimes you got to have some fun with your money, and I'm terrible at that. My fun is running around in a costume and, spending money that way, but Nick will go on vacation 2-3 times a year, and I can honestly say my wife would much rather go on vacation than she would watching me run around in a costume. That's one of the things you have to look at.
Yeah. Well, and, one thing, so if you and your wife are on the same page, that's one thing, right? If you both have the end goal in mind to hoard money, to get to a retirement, if it impacts your life, in such a significant way, yeah, do it, right? But, what I was realizing was I'm hoarding money, getting nowhere fast. Again, we talked about, how much I save every month, or every week or whatever, and that was what I needed to get to my goals. I wanted more, and I'm watching my wife just say, when's enough enough? And so you have to look at yourself and say, hey, okay, you know what? And that was a big thing for me. It took me until probably 3 years ago when we went on vacation. I took a small chunk of money, put it into an account because we thought we were going to get 11% interest on it. And we had it there for a month, and all of a sudden the 11% interest stopped. You had to start using your card and doing a bunch of stuff, and it just wasn't worth it to us. So my wife and I were like, well, let's just make it a vacation fund. She puts in, whatever a week, I put in whatever a week, and then whenever we want to go on vacation, we both have a debit card, and the rules now are you can spend as much as you want on whatever you want, as long as we can get through the whole vacation and have, some type of money, and really don't hold yourself back on it, right? So you have the amount of money that's in it, and so when we go on the all-inclusive, right, it costs me, let's call it $2,000. Swipe it, pay for everything there, and then we get there and everything comes off that. We went on a vacation, and I didn't check my account every day to figure out how much I spent. I didn't do anything to figure out how much I spent, and that was like an eye-opener to me. I was like, okay, so like, can't say it saved my marriage, right? My wife and I love each other dearly. We're gonna be married 10 years here in a month. I got to figure out a gift for that. So, but it's really like to us in our relationship. She has different goals than what I have. Mine is to have this lifestyle, and hers is to live life now. And so to have a happy medium, yeah, I'm gonna go on vacation. I'm gonna do these things to support, and I thought that was key for us for sure.
Well, I think that's where I'm coming from too, because I know, Mike was over a couple weeks ago. Nick brought his wife over a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to your wife. I'm like, my 20th anniversary is coming up in a couple of years. I'd like to take a trip. You guys should go. And I've been talking to Mike about this for at least a year, saying, hey, I want to take a trip for my 20th. You should go.
Yeah. And
that's one of the things, trying to keep your mate happy. That's something that's important. And Ummer has not been married nearly as long as what Nick and I have, and obviously, not as long as Mike was. But when you look at hoarding money, really, what are the things that you're going to be able to do that is not necessarily hoarding and keeping you and your wife from doing what you want?
That's difficult for me to answer because I built up such a huge nest egg by the time we got married that I've never had to worry about that.
Sure.
Where, when I was younger, I made the right choices and flipped my life around, and then I turned around, got married, then I bought a house, then I had a kid. So like I did everything in the right order, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're like that 1% that's actually like had your crap together. I mean,
yeah.
like,
And it's wonderful. Let me tell you, if you guys are young and you're watching this, it's the best thing in the world.
So, like, let me ask you now, like, does your wife ask for a new car?
No.
So, I mean, like, right, like,
But,
I know my wife right now, she's like, oh, I want a new vehicle. And I'm like, we'll buy a used one, so like, and I have a nest egg, but like I hoard money because like she doesn't need brand new. She needs used and we'll be just fine. They'll go from A to B. So,
yeah, by new, does she mean just different?
No. No, and my wife and I look at things financially so much different, and I love it, right? Like, it keeps us on our toes, and it definitely, like, without my wife, I wouldn't have experienced half the things I've done, right? Like, I wouldn't have traveled to states and countries that I've never been to. With this whole COVID thing, so my 10-year anniversary, as I said, is a month away. We were supposed to go to Europe for a while, and now that COVID hit, that is literally out the door. So now we have to plan a vacation with the kid because my mother can no longer watch her, stuff like that. So, to have your stuff together at such a young age, I mean, right? Like we look at, no offense, but Mike, right? Like, I mean, your budgeting stuff when you were with your wife was different than what Ummer's was before his wife, right? And like, so if your wife back then asked for a new car, what would you do?
I would have still said, we can't afford it.
Right, you can't afford it, but Ummer's over here like, I can afford it. I got the money. So, that's just the key is making the right decisions will get you to be able to do what you want. And I think that's the biggest key for David and I is, you know what? Set yourself up so you don't ever have to say no.
And talk about your goals. Because once we started talking about our goals, we found out that they were so similarly aligned. And the more we talk about it, the more we're like, yeah, we both want to retire crazy early, as early as possible. And
what's early to you?
For me, it would be like in 5 years. So by the time I'm 40.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then my wife was thinking she'll work by choice until she's about 50.
Sure.
So in order to make that happen, you got to act a certain way, do certain things, and we're both on board.
Yeah, I'm trying to retire yesterday, and my wife doesn't ever want to retire. But I'm trying to convince her that retirement could mean that she can go do her job anywhere in the world and not have to get paid for it. So she's starting to come around to it because, when we do go out of the country, she's like, I can help these people. And I'm like, that's the spirit right there. I can help these people. So, no, and I don't want money to be the deciding factor in that. So, I guess, David, what other bad habits are you seeing that people are doing to keep them not financially successful?
So another thing we have here is we touched on a little bit last time. It's impulse buying or buying things that are on sale. My wife is great at this. She'll go to Meijer and she'll see that she saved $130, but she spent $150. So she'll say, hey, I saved $130. Isn't this great? And I'm like, yeah, if you didn't go to the store, you would have saved $150. That's, not really jiving with me here.
Sure.
So one of the things you really need to do is we hammered it home as much as we can. Write everything down. So if you're gonna make a shopping trip, write down the things you want, buy those things, don't worry about what's on sale.
Yeah. And, I say, we all have those times where we do that. I mean, I am guilty of it. I did it yesterday, honestly, just yesterday, right? So I was golfing with my friends, and all of a sudden, we had such a great time. I was like, oh man, I'll order pizza. You guys come over. So I ordered pizza, paid for the tip on delivery. I was like, let's go grab some more beers. Ended up with, again, Bud Light. So, but right, I impulse bought that. My wife literally had food ready for that night, and we could have just eaten that and had it for free. So, it's being able to control those emotions and not spend it if you don't have to, kind of a thing. So,
well, and kind of the next thing falling off of that is vices. And when we talk about vices, we're not necessarily talking about alcohol and drugs.
Yep.
We're talking about alcohol, drugs, lottery. Lottery is a big vice for people. Eating out is a vice.
Yep.
Buying coffee. I know at one point, my wife would stop at Speedway and she'd pay $2 for a coffee. And I kept saying, I'm like, listen, you can make coffee here. It's not going to cost you $2 every time you make it. It might cost you $2 to make a big ass thing of it, and you can go, 6 cups out of that.
Yep.
And you really need to look at that spending and say, okay, do I really need to spend money at Starbucks? Do I really need to spend money, grabbing a Egg McMuffin at McDonald's? Do I really need to buy the Powerball this week?
Yeah, and I say I fully agree. We talked about my gambling, and stuff like that. I do enjoy it, but if you can afford it, it's the thing. If you can't afford it, don't do it. So, yeah, say I'm moving around a little bit. Just want to get some light,
spooky.
but yeah. Thank you.
You're
Just
welcome.
say it's no, it's vices are it. Like, and I'm not, again, if you're a smoker, I'm not telling you to stop smoking. If you a cowboy that chews tobacco, I'm not telling you to stop, right? I'm saying budget for it and make it a thing. But again, just remember, it's what's costing you money.
Yeah, and some of those vices are becoming very, very expensive. So it's just about, being smart about it. Mike and I watched the last, 3-4 Super Bowls together, right?
Yep.
And I bet on the Super Bowl every year. Now, I'm not betting on who's going to win or lose, but I'm on FanDuel and I'm, picking a few players. That way, hopefully I can win some money. And he can attest that I'm sitting there every time going, damn it, this guy needs to get another touchdown for me, just so I can win $5.
Every time somebody would hit a few yards or score a touchdown, I'd be like, "What's it at now?"
Yep. And again, it's a little bit of fun, but you have to reel that in sometimes too.
I know. I have friends. I have friends that spend, and I'm not exaggerating, right? They spend thousands of dollars on fantasy football every year. They get into leagues, and okay, you can win, but I know I was one for $50 or whatever, and like 3 of my players got injured, and I'm just like, oh man, like this is crazy. So, I want to. Everybody has a vice. Everybody has something that costs them money that they don't absolutely need, but makes them happy. So, we're trying to figure out how happy it makes you, right? I mean, again, we talked about coffee. I give my wife crap every time she gets coffee, but I also tell her that, hey, if you're going to buy coffee, you're not buying Amazon packages. Like, before this episode, Mike went and got an Amazon package. So, no, it's, it's all those types of things to make you understand that, hey, you're spending money on stuff that really just doesn't make you happy. It makes you happy for 2 seconds. It doesn't make you happy for a long time. So take a look at it. Maybe see if you can cut it down just a little bit. Start small baby steps. That's what we always talk about is, start small and go big.
So one of the next things is, hang on, I gotta get my phone going here. Investments. Either A, not investing, or B, when you invest, you don't diversify. So honestly, one of the things, and three of us are doing it, I know, constantly, and I know Mike wants to get into it, is you need to take and invest all the time. Now, I assume all of us have either a 401k or a 403b that you're dumping money into.
I say 403b is basically the exact same thing as a 401k, except for offered by nonprofit corporations. So,
correct.
Yeah, so we just want you guys to be clear on what they are, so that way terminology. Right, a lot of healthcare systems, if you do happen to work for a nonprofit organization, right, they could offer that as well. So really, they're the same thing. Company's going to match you money. It's going to go in there, and you're going to be able to transfer it, when you're of retirement age.
Now,
you can draw from it.
Correct. Now, having that's a great thing, but I'm not only about funding those accounts. Let's fund some different accounts, whether it's something like Acorns, where you hook your debit card up to it and it takes your change and throws it in, or whether it's something like Robinhood or Stash, where you're just shoving money every month. Do something where you're investing. Yeah. I with my kid, $50 every month goes into her Betterment investment account, IRA. Every month, no choice.
So, right, diversity keeps you from having, when one thing fails, the possibility of all the things failing isn't there, right? So, right, we talked about Betterment. We talked about 401ks. I know I have some real estate, right? I mean, it's not going to crash as much as, something. If real estate market goes down, like, the market could go down, but the stock market could go up. Right. So you have your wealth front. Right. And so the more things that you're into, the better the chances that some of them will make money and the others won't. Right. So you don't want you don't want to give somebody 10K and say, here, invest this, hope and pray. Right. Your better odds are lending 10 friends $1,000, and 9 of them will give you, right, your 5% return, and the one will just give you $1,000 back, right? So what we want to do is try to spread that wealth, spread that money out, so that way they grow in different things, right? And yes, okay, we all agree that savings accounts aren't the greatest investment, but man, they're solid investments. They're guaranteed returns. They're going to give you something. So, right, you can start small and then grow into. If your company offers stocks, if your company, I think David and I definitely agree. If your company offers a 401k match, you take that percentage guaranteed, no matter what it is. I mean, I know Amr and Mike both said that they have it. We all have a 401k or a 403. Like, it's amazing because, the company is giving you free money to invest in that company. So, grow your portfolio as wide as possible. I mean, you know what? The higher the risk, the potential of the reward. So get to where your comfort level is and invest money there.
Well, and each one of us are different. So when you look at Nick, he has rental properties, he has his 401k, he has his betterment. When you look at me, I have my 403b, I have IRAs, I have Fundrise, which is passive real estate investment. I have Prosper, which is lending money to, people that are just looking to either consolidate debt or pay for home improvements or whatever the case may be. With Mike, he has his retirement account, which I assume in the next year it's going to move into more than just that retirement account. He's probably going to open 2 or 3 more just by what he's done with us. And when you look at Ummer, he goes, yeah, I'm pretty much set with what I need, and I'm just moving on to making more money.
Sure. And I know with Ummer, right, like we originally talked, and it's like, where does he want to be? And, I know he talked about real estate, and now, like, I know we're going to do episodes about like what things you can do with real estate. You could own, you can lend, we'll talk about that in a later episode, but man, there's always ways to diversify your portfolio. And it's something that everybody, again, it goes back to that educating yourself about what options there are, because there's no cookie cutter way for any one person, right? Comfort is key.
Well, when we look at the money, I know, obviously I decided I'm going to go back to school and get my finance degree because that's important to me. I like money. I wanted to learn more about investing. I've hit that. And Amr and I have talked a little bit, and honestly, his passion is also money, and he'd really like to go and be a financial advisor, but that is kind of a pain in the butt. There's so many things you have to do that. Go ahead, Amr, talk about that a little bit.
So I did a little bit of research, and I'm like, well, what would it take for me to actually have like the accreditation, those letters after your name? And you have to take mandatory classes. You have to take all these exams. It was just so out of the question. I couldn't believe that that's what they make you do. When in reality, all I want to do is help people get their finances in order.
Sure.
Like, it's a simple, like, hey, I would like to help you out, and I would like to give you the truth and not charge you an arm and a leg for you to get it. So that's why when I found out you were doing these videos, I was like, all right, I'm on board.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at, because I've been able to sit down with some people and say, hey, this is what works for me. And when I threw out there, hey, Nick and I want to talk, Amr jumped right on that and said, listen, I love talking about finances. And if I can learn something, great. And if I can teach something, great. And that's kind of why we started doing this. The same thing with Mike. He sat there and he said, hey, you guys are doing this on Thursday. That's nice and all, but I can't do Thursday. Can you do Tuesday? Because not necessarily is he going to contribute every week, but he wants to sit there and say, okay, what else can I pick out of this and get a little better at?
Yeah. Well, and say, even talking with this, right? Like, we have multiple people's input on stuff that none of us, I own more real estate than all 3 of you put together, right? I'm not an expert at it because there's always somebody that owns more than me. There's somebody whose 401k is doing better than mine. There's somebody's betterment who's doing better than mine. There's somebody's IRA that's better than mine. So there's always somebody that has more knowledge than I do. So I'm always willing to give that a listen. We talk about bad habits, and I think another bad habit we need to talk about is the willingness, or the willingness to just spend money because you feel bad. Right? It could be we can throw it back into vices, but right? I mean, you're the person that's lending money. Like, you're the mom, you're the aunt, you're the whatever, that people come to for money, right? You're constantly lending it out but that has potential that this person is not going to pay you back, right? That's hurting you financially to get to the next point to where you want to be. So, right, we look at that. Like, you have to understand that you can learn to say no. I think that's a big key for us is we find a lot of, especially in the inner city areas, people that don't have money, they ask other people that don't have money for money, but if they have $10, they're just going to give it to them, right? To help them get by because they want to see them succeed. So, if you don't have it, don't lend it. Learn small baby steps to say no, right? I mean, it could be as small as, hey, I have to put this under contract just to hold them accountable for stuff. I mean, you know what? Honestly, I learned that contracts are a huge key because once somebody, so if I were to loan David $50 and I say, hey man, it's not that I don't trust you, it's that I just want to make this documented, right? If he's not willing to sign that, I mean, he really thinks that there's a small chance in his mind that he's not going to pay it back. And that's when you know it's a red flag, right? So when red flags are out there, I mean, honestly, if you have full intentions to pay it back, no harm, no foul, like sign the paperwork, here you go, right? I mean, I sign documents to buy a house. I intend to pay all that money back. I sign, documents for, whatever I borrow, whether it was a car loan or anything like that, I intend to pay that money back. So every time you borrow money, you intend to pay it back, so you might as well sign that document, right? So if you're the person that's lending, you're always getting hit up for money, man, make a contract, make people accountable. That's the type of habit we're looking for.
Well, in making people accountable, they may not like that, but that's really lifting them up.
Yep.
It's holding them to a standard and making them say, listen, I understand this is an obligation. I'm going to pay this obligation off. And hopefully the next time they won't need to come to you and say, hey, I need to borrow $50.
Yeah. I hate to say it, right? But like, what if you telling that person to sign the contract for $50 is that eye opener that they've hit that low point that keeps them from going to the check cashing store? What if, right? Like we play that what if game. What if you just made them just go, I should probably take a better look at my life and realize this isn't where I want to be. I should start that budget, kind of a thing. So I want to be the person that people come to for loans.
So and kind of the next thing I want to hit on is fees. Bad habits are fees. I don't care if they're finance charges. I don't care if they're annual fees on credit cards. I don't care if they're overdraft fees. I don't care if they're, monthly dues to the gym that you never use.
Yeah.
Any fees you have that you're not actually seeing a benefit from, they got to go.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. If you're not using it, get rid of it, right? And we talked about credit cards in another episode. David and I don't do annual fees. It's just not a thing. I'm not going to give you money to let me borrow money, right? Because we pay off our credit cards on time. So, right, like I know Mike, he doesn't do an annual fee. I mean, it's David said, hey, look, you're wasting money on stuff. So we're trying to keep you from wasting money. If you're not, we talked about all your streaming apps. If if you're not using them, right, don't own them. I mean, if it's not costing you money, no harm, no foul. Because I know some people have Disney Plus because it was for free. Great. Try it out, do it, right? But, after a year, you're going to realize if you watch it or not, because a year is a long time for free. So that's a long trial. If you're in, some type of, we talked about multi-level marketing, right? If you have an annual fee or a sign-up fee to do that, it's probably not right? I mean, sorry, by annual I mean like a monthly cost to make sure that you stay in the thing. It's not a thing. Like it's not making you any money. It's actually costing you money every month to do. Don't do it.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. You need to put your resources into things that are actually going to build your wealth. And annual fees, monthly fees, finance charges, none of that's building your wealth. We're not looking for those things. We're looking for, if you use your credit card, they're giving you 1.5% back. You're paying it off in full. You're making $25 a month or every couple months, whatever it is. They're paying, $300, $400, $500, $600 a year to use their card. Now we're talking. But that's what it has to be. They need to pay you for the convenience of using their stuff.
And I want to be clear here is, like, I pay fees to get loans on houses, right? Like I pay a realtor fee or something. There's things that are unavoidable. We're talking about the fees that you can avoid, right? I mean, it's things, it goes back to, again, things that you're not using. And so again, find out that what you might be paying money on and getting nothing out of.
Well, that kind of rolls us into something else never to do. Some people will tell you this is a great idea because you're paying yourself back. Don't take a 401k loan. Don't take, Ummer and I don't have the option to take a 403b loan. They don't offer those at the company we work for. Yep. In an old world, we could take a 401k loan. And yeah, technically you're paying yourself back, but you're losing all of the benefits of that money growing.
Yep.
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, let's say, and that's we talked about that in the COVID episode, was right. You can take money. It's not even a loan. You can take money out of your 401k right now and penalty free. Like, right. But the idea is that this money is to grow for a long period of time. You're losing out on the benefit of so much money from this. Right. Like, trust me, I'm the guy who thinks about it all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to retire from my job. What do I need a 401k for? What if I just take a loan against myself and pay off a house? Yeah, but I'm just shooting myself in the foot because you know what? I mean, that is guaranteed 401k money that company is matching. Like, I've lost out on dollars upon dollars by taking money out. That is a huge thing that David and I agree upon, is never take a loan against your 401k. You know what? If it saves you from bankruptcy, like, you better be signing the paper with a lawyer that says I'm going to declare bankruptcy. That at that point you hold the pen back and go, you know what? My 401k might save me. Then maybe think about it, as long as you don't use all of it. Because if you use all your 401k to do it, you could take 50% usually. Without this whole COVID thing being there, usually you can take up to 50% or whatever and then pay yourself back. But like, no, there's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. Don't do it.
Well, and I can't speak for Mike, but I can speak for myself. So, I'm 42. I remember sitting there with our switch from a 401k to a 403b, and they're like, pick out the year you're going to retire. And I started laughing because I don't think I'll ever really retire. Part of that is I work from home and I like my job, so I don't mind doing it because I work from home.
Yeah.
Part of it's I don't think Social Security will exist at that point because I think all the politicians are going to rob us of our money. So I figure, okay, well, there will be no Social Security, so there's just no possibility of retirement. But, that was 10-ish years ago. I'm 42 now. I'm retiring at some point.
Well, it's funny.
I'll give a rat's ass if it's the day before I die. I'm retiring.
It's funny you bring that up because, I did the same thing. It was like, how much should you invest per the time you want to retire? And again, being 31, I probably started mine with my company, right when I could. So 7 years ago, because you had to be a year in. And I put it as, so let's call it, I was 25 years old. So I put it at, 25 years old, and it was like, you need to invest $1.2 million per year or per week. And I was like, man, I'm retiring tomorrow. Like, I don't know what you people talking about, and the thing about the retirement apps and what I found is, I have Wells Fargo, and I can't input my other incomes to say how much I need. Like, I have to guess. So it's funny because, like, I put in 20% right now into my 401k when I have a job, and it's like, oh, you'll get 105% of, potential 105% return, and you'll have enough money for retirement. And I'm over here laughing, I'm like, plus my real estate, plus my betterment, plus this, and I'm like, man, if this one's 100%, like, I'm gonna be living large. Like, it doesn't even count any of this. So, if you take one, so we talked about diversity. If you take one of those and close it up, right, you've limited yourself on where you're going to be later in life, and you're going to want to use that later in life.
Well, I don't know if I'll get to the living a lavish life in retirement. I hope I get to retirement. That'll be great. But I know my daughter will be set up to live a retirement because I've set her up as well as I can. And as long as she's smart, she's going to retire, probably early, have money, and be set.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's all I care about. I'm sure that, Mike said in the last episode, he just wants his kids to be happy, and that's great. But I know Nick would like his daughter to do whatever she wants to do. I know Umar would probably like his son to do whatever he wants to do. And in all honesty, even though Mike just wants his kids to be happy, that means doing whatever they want to do.
Yeah. So, I told you guys in the beginning of the first video that we were going to start with budgeting. Write it, believe it, set it, right? I want to end episode 2, whatever, with the exact same thing. Like, we talked about good habits, we talked about bad habits. The biggest thing we could talk to you guys about is budget, right? Write it down, understand it, set it. Like, once you set it, don't forget it, right? Like, this will make you the most successful you've ever been. And I mean that because you're going to look at it and you're going to say, this is where I'm at. This is where I need to be. This is who I want to be, right? So budget. Anybody else want to add anything to this bad habits or talk about budgeting?
You're both very quiet. Let's start with Umar.
No, he said he's happy.
Yeah, you got it. Track everything you can. Once you start tracking it, you know where your money's going, and then you can figure out where you need to make changes.
Yeah, perfect.
Mike?
I really don't have anything to add beyond that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're writing it down, you're holding yourself accountable. And that's the biggest obstacle you have in anything you do, whether it's building wealth, whether it's losing weight, whether it's getting a degree, it really doesn't matter. Anything you want to accomplish, if you write it down, you have a better shot of making that happen.
So that's a guarantee. So, hey, Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, if you're out there and you want to sponsor us, make it happen. We'll be the happiest guys ever. Any Michigan breweries?
I'd rather Atwater or Founders sponsor us because I like those a lot better.
I'd be so excited. But no, really, guys, like I always say in every episode, if you liked what you've seen here, like it, subscribe, share it. We'd be happy because we want to teach everybody that's willing to listen. And we're hoping that people enjoy what we're talking about. We're just a bunch of friends and good guys that just want to teach everybody. So like, subscribe, share. I really appreciate all that. Take care now.
Yeah, send us in some questions. We'd really like to know what you guys want to listen to, talk about. I mean, Nick and I get together usually every weekend and we're like, hey, what do we want to talk about this week? And we've written down a bunch of things, and even today's, I basically talked to him this morning. I wrote down a few things and sent it out to the guys. I said, here, let's add, subtract, whatever.
Yep.
So give us what you want to talk about, because that's what we want to talk about, and hopefully we can all learn from each other, because I want to make more money, and if you can teach me how to do that, then I'm all about it.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.